A Hollywood insider claims that Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy is not viewed as a woke warrior within the walls of Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Company. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. I wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com earlier this afternoon, and Hollywood insider and analyst Matthew Bellany shared his inside information that within the Walt Disney Company, Kathleen Kennedy is not known as a woke warrior. He made his comments during the April 1st episode of the Town podcast. No, this was not an April Fool's joke. While discussing the proxy war between Nelson Peltz and the Walt Disney Company's board of directors, Bellany discussed the role of Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm with Bloomberg's Lucas Shaw after bringing up Elon Musk's April Fool's post. Bellany, who is no fan of Kathleen Kennedy and blasted the Walt Disney Company for re-upping her contract back in 2021. He did do that. Covered that over at Bounding into Comics when I was the editor-in-chief over there. But he said this on his podcast on the Town with Lucas Shaw. He says, Kathleen Kennedy is not that. That whole South Park thing was sort of, it was funny, but it wasn't accurate. Like within Disney, she's not known as the woke warrior. He continued, she kind of has to be convinced, from everything I've been told, she has to be convinced to do this stuff. Bellany then attempted to make his point by noting there had not been a female Star Wars director under her leadership. He says, and there's still never been a female director of a Star Wars movie. I'm very critical of Kathy Kennedy, but I don't think that she's gone overboard on the diversity stuff. He is absolutely 100% wrong. Kathleen Kennedy's track record proves it. So her own words rebuke what he has to say here. So I'm not really sure exactly what kind of game he is playing at. But let's just go over some of this track record. Obviously, in 2015, before The Force Awakens even released into theaters, she did an appearance at Fortune Magazine's The Most Powerful Women Summit. And she made it very clear she was going to be injecting feminism and woke ideology into Star Wars. She says, I think the interesting path we've had is the conversation that took place around consumer products, because there are a lot of companies that were in place who frankly didn't initially feel that Star Wars was for girls. And when you have a company situation where between Lucasfilm and Disney, we were all looking at this situation saying, no, with Star Wars, we have to change this. We have to make sure that we create products that are, in a sense, appealing to both boys and girls. What's wrong with that? Except that's not what you did. You totally got rid of products that appealed to boys and are now completely on board with girls. And boys and girls are different, and different properties appeal to different people. She would go on to detail the fact that the company was bought by the Walt Disney Company has been amazing because they very much support the fact that we are trying to grow in the workforce a number of women in executive positions and in all positions inside the company, and with the movies that we are making and with the protagonists that we are putting in the stories. So I get a huge amount of support with that. So clearly talking about that they have quotas for pushing females into not only their executive positions, but in the stories that they are telling. So I don't know what Matthew Bellany calls that, but I call that woke because that is exactly what it is. She went on to add, but we have 50% of our executive team are women, and 6 out of 8 of the people in my story group are women. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that would be surprised that we're making Star Wars movies, and the majority of the people involved in the development of those stories are women. And I think it's making a huge difference in the stories that we're trying to tell. So there you go. That was in 2015. Fortune Magazine Most Powerful Women Summit. Right there, you can watch it. I'll have the link in the description below to this article. But that was her basically telling us that she was making Star Wars woke 2015 before The Force Awakens even came out. But let's just look at some of the other evidence. Obviously, you can just look at The Force Awakens. It is a complete soft reboot. They replaced Luke Skywalker with Rey, so it got gender swapped. R2-D2 and C-3PO were replaced with BB-8. Kylo Ren replaced Darth Vader. Snoke replaced the Emperor. The wise mentor figure of Obi-Wan Kenobi was completely erased. I guess you could say that they introduced whatever that Cosmonauta person was, or Maz Kanata, whatever that character was. That was more of like a Yoda replacement rather than an Obi-Wan Kenobi. So they completely erased like the wizened mentor figure. Han Solo and Chewbacca were replaced by Poe Dameron and Finn. And not only did Lucasfilm embrace feminism, but it clearly embraced diversity and representation agendas as seen with the soft reboot of The Force Awakens. We just kind of went over the casting there and how they did that. Following this soft reboot, the franchise has also promoted disordered sexual behavior. We're seeing this in Disney Disney Junior shows. Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures pushing transgender ideology and this idea that you can become non-binary. We've also seen them promote homosexuality in their comics, short stories, video games, and novels. I mean, this is all over the place. They introduced a bunch of transgender characters in their New Republic stuff. So they're clearly pushing a lot of this stuff throughout the entire company. So the idea that she's not a woke warrior, the evidence suggests otherwise. I mean, they even have preferred pronouns in their Star Wars: The High Republic character encyclopedia for every single character in the encyclopedia. That is transgender ideology. That is what they're trying to push there. We can also look at the themes of the movies and stories that they are now telling. I think that the franchise has eschewed its clear moral position of a battle between right and wrong, good and evil, which George Lucas made abundantly clear that's what it was in numerous interviews. Now the series embraces a balance between good and evil. Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi also coined the phrase, "Let the past die, kill it if you have to," which, if that phrase doesn't perfectly capture how woke ideology attempts to gain a stranglehold on the mind, I don't know what is better. That's exactly what it is. They want to kill the past so you can't remember it, you don't think about it, you don't know it. So only the woke is around. So you want to let it die, and if it doesn't die, you got to kill it so people don't remember it. And they don't know any better. They don't know any other alternatives aside from the woke. It's exactly what that is. Outside of its film and TV productions and the stories and all of that stuff, which we've kind of been going over here, the company fired Gina Carano from The Mandalorian and the planned Rangers of the New Republic Disney Plus series. And we found out in a recent legal filing, is actually the Walt Disney Company admitted this in their motion to dismiss Gina Carano's lawsuit, that she was indeed fired for her political and moral positions that are opposed to various tentacles of woke ideology, such as transgenderism. And just to be clear, all of these examples that I've given are part of woke ideology. Bishop Robert Barron, I think, does a very good example of this. He did an interview with Angelus News some years ago, and this is how he kind of explained these various tenets of woke ideology. He says, first, they advocate a deeply antagonistic social theory whereby the world is divided sharply into the two classes of oppressors and oppressed. Second, they relativize a moral value and see classical morality as an attempt by the ruling class to maintain itself in power. I think we very clearly see that in how they have, they talk about this balance between the light and the dark, good and evil in Star Wars now, rather than the dark being basically you embracing sin and wounding yourself and being in pain and all of this stuff, and being kind of a corruption of the Force, which is how it was originally talked about and portrayed in the films. Third, they focus not so much on the individual as on racial and ethnic categories, and hence they endorse the idea of collective guilt and recommend a sort of reverse discrimination to address the injustices of the past. I think you can also add in sex or gender in there as well. We just talked about Kathleen Kennedy and how she's pushing all of that stuff, or was pushing all that stuff as far back as 2015 in Lucasfilm. I think that fits perfectly within that third point there. Fourth, they tend to demonize the market economy and the institutions of democracy as part of a superstructure defending the privileged. Fifth, they push toward equity of outcome throughout the society rather than equality of opportunity. It's kind of how everyone can be a Jedi now. There's all kinds of Jedis. Anyone can do it. We've seen this, that everyone now has access to the Force, and you don't need any kind of long-term training or significant you don't need any long-term training. You don't need any significant dedication. You don't put yourself into the work to learn how to master the Force. We saw this in Dave Filoni's Ahsoka series, where he actually had some interesting commentary from Ahsoka that everyone can tap into the Force, which I agree with, but you have to spend time at doing it. And he had that in the dialogue. But then when it came to Sabine Wren actually practicing that, not so much, because you instantly got a power upgrade when the plot needed. So completely contradicted what was happening in the show. And I think that we see that all over the Star Wars stories. This idea of equity rather than equality of opportunity, and also kind of this rejection that um, people have individual talents and they might be better at other things than other people, and that's just how it is. God made us all different. And then finally, Bishop Barron says, and finally, wokeism employs divisive and aggressive strategies of accusation that are contrary to the gospel demand to love our enemies. Again, I think that we see that with the firing of Gina Carano and how they've treated her, as well as how they've treated a number of their former fans, people who had been huge fans of the movies, supported the franchise throughout the years. Now they actively attack them on social media, and they employ people who hate them and defend people who actively hate on their former fans. Numerous examples of that throughout the years. So while Disney might not see her as a woke warrior, so maybe Bellany is accurate in that assessment, the actions Lucasfilm has taken under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership show that she is indeed one. And it's why she must be opposed, and her vision for Star Wars and Lucasfilm must be rejected. This stuff is evil. The stuff they're pushing is absolutely wrong, and we must indeed reject it. So those are my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know what you make of what Matthew Bellany has to say about people inside the Walt Disney Company do not view Kathleen Kennedy as a woke warrior, despite literally over a decade of her actions clearly show that she is pushing the woke agenda through Star Wars in various different mediums, whether that be film, television, novels, video games, etc. Let me know what you guys make of this in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, but to always speak the truth.